Hey, what's going on? Today is January 11th, 1/11/24, and you're listening and watching the Daily AI Show live. And today, what we have for you is a twofer. We thought we're hoping today we were going to talk just about the release of OpenAI's custom GPT store. However, yesterday they also made an announcement about teams. So we can cover both today because it's sort of an OpenAI day. They had two announcements in one day. So we'll touch on both of them. And I think before we get going, let me announce who's here. We got Junmi, Beth, Carl, Andy, and I'm Brian. And we're just going to kind of go through some of these announcements. But let's start with some generals here of what the two are. So who wants to? Let's start with the store, and then we'll go to teams. So who wants to approach the store and just kind of give an overview of what it is?
Sure.
Oh, Junmi.
All right, Andy, you take that one. Jimmy, you want to take teams?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, go ahead, Andy.
Oh, I was trying to punt. Okay.
Okay.
No, that's okay. I'll do it. So, ChatGPT had originally a chat interface, and you had to build a prompt library and then put your prompt in order to retain some functionality that you had designed and carefully developed through your prompt structuring. Then they offered this thing called custom GPTs, where you could create any number of sort of separate, already preset prompted GPTs, and those were called custom GPTs. That was very useful because now you could create in a little library that's just on the left-hand side of your view of ChatGPT. You could build a little library of things that you could work with repeatedly without having to then go find your prompt, plug it into the chat interface or the playground, etc. So then you could deliver those to other people by providing the link, but as is the case today as well, those people who could use and see those GPTs that you created had to have the Chat GPT Plus subscription. Nonetheless, over the course of the last few months since that release, apparently 3 million custom GPTs have been created. It's not clear whether there's 3 million public GPTs or whether there's 3 million GPTs. It could be a little sleight of hand there. But let's just assume that there's 3 million publicly facing, that is, the user who created the GPT says, I'm going to release this to the public. You have options. You can see seen only by me, people with the link, or release it to the public. So there's approximately a big bucket of those GPTs out there. And they were basically undiscoverable with the exception of the fact that some other people created some tools that would actually search Google for the particular URL that defined what a custom GPT was. And so some navigation and discovery was available. And that allowed a certain number of these really very, very complex and proficient GPTs that had been created by programmers to surface. And Grimoire comes to mind, which is a programming one that has, an incredible number of I think it's Mind Goblin Studios. They have not only Grimoire, but a number of others. So there's a small team of really great programmers who have built a library of custom GPTs. And now those are featured at the top level of the new store because they have thousands and thousands of users already. So is that a good enough introduction? Is there anything new? Go ahead and fill in.
The only thing I was going to add to that is you said store, and this is important for anybody who hasn't just gone over to that screen because you might have gotten access. We all got access at different times yesterday, but I imagine there's still some people rolling out who don't have access yet. Store, it could be a little misleading because the store that probably most of us are familiar with would be like the Apple store or the Google Android store, whatever that's called, the Google store. Same idea. Okay, I go on there. Okay, I like Grimoire, or I like Mr. Reindeer. These are popular custom GPTs. Oh, okay. You know what? They're selling it for $5.99 a month, $5.99 a month. Yeah, I mean, for what it does, it seems like there's a chance of that. I say, open ChatGPT and I say yes to that, and then I can cancel my subscription like I could with Apple. That's in fact not how it works, but I think it's not uncommon for people to think that is how it works. Like I pay for the custom GPT I want to use, and then when I don't, I cancel my subscription. What they're proposing is different than that, right? And we can open this to a discussion is, hey, you make your custom, Andy, you made one. You make your custom GPT public, and then here's the part we don't know all the answers to. OpenAI has simply said up to this point, hey, we're going to have some like revenue sharing with you, Andy. If people really love your custom GPT and the numbers are such, we're going to throw something back your way. The thing is, we have no idea what that is. Is it like Spotify where Andy could see 3 cents if 10,000 weekly users are using his custom GPT? Or is Andy actually going to make a couple of bucks off of that? We don't know that part of it. So it is interesting.
It's kind of like the YouTube model. You'd have to get to really large audiences before you'd see any money in this scheme.
Right.
Yeah.
It's also for currently, they haven't said what it's going to be, but also it's only for US builders right now. So
is
sorry,
that right?
Carl.
No.
Carl is like,
I know this stuff. This is not new.
For anybody that's new listening, Carl is in Canada, and then when we have Aaron is in Australia, in Perth. So we have some international players on our team, and they not always, but seem to get the AI shaft a lot of times when it comes to new stuff. Carl is proficient at using VPNs. All right. So did anybody want add anything as far as just an overview? But I just felt like the pricing model was important because
No, and I agree.
And I just want to clarify on what you just said. Carl people can use the GPT store to discover things, but only US builders can profit right now. I mean, no one's profiting right now because they haven't said what it is. But when they say what it is, it will only be US builders in the beginning.
Yeah. Okay. So we don't have the information on what whatever the profit share scheme is. And I think the main reason they call it the store is they have a roadmap of, what they plan to do with it. And it's definitely going to be some sort of commerce portal.
This is definitely an app store. It is an app store. Custom GPTs are little apps that you can use to do, custom things. And they're narrowly defined in many cases. So here's the thing. One that I use almost every day because the custom GPTs I built give you back a .text file, right? And when you use a text edit tool on your desktop, it comes out as an RTF file. So there's a custom GPT which is called Convert Anything. I can put any file in there and I say, convert this to this other format. So I put in the RTF file, it comes back as a text file, it gives me the download, and that's all it does. Yeah. So there's no discussion, there's no chat GPT conversation. You just upload the file, it converts it, and behind the scenes is a prompt that basically guides that particular code interpreter version of chat GPT to do that file transformation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a really good point you said, Andy, and this is sort of a deeper dive into it. I guess what we'll do is we'll talk. I said we would do teams. Here's the thing. We'll talk at least through the first half of the show, maybe a little longer about the store and custom GPTs, and then we'll talk about teams as well. So hold on tight if you want to learn about teams, because that was sort of an extra for yesterday. We didn't know it was coming out, or at least I didn't. So we'll talk about that. But okay. One of the things I want to bring up good point, Andy, is about the idea of being a little niche, a little bit focused on what a custom GPT. Number one, we know from prompting they work better when they're focused on whatever the particular task is, like converting a file. And it's interesting you say that because the number one education one right now, it's called Universal Primer. Learn everything about anything. I'm like, maybe it's a great custom GPT, but that's a horrible custom GPT. I don't want to knock them because they're number one. Clearly people are using them, but if the goal is for me just to learn anything about anything, I don't really need a custom GPT for that. I just start with Chat GPT. I'm kind of there, everything, which is like, hey, here's everything in the world. Where do you want to go? And, you know, through your conversation, you can narrow down. So I found that to be interesting because, like, yeah,
there could
like,
be,
guess
there
the other
could
one
be
is
one
math
exception,
AI.
which is suppose for a moment that this has been done by a sophisticated, action-based programmer, and it's
Right.
using browsing to collect and potentially incorporate into its own knowledge base new information that's up to date. I doubt that that's the case here. Most of the custom GPTs I see are very simple. They're relying very heavily on the already existing knowledge of GPT-4, and it's basically giving you a simple curbed experience because they've generated a small prompt in there that does what the sort of the headline of that custom GPT says it will do.
So that's the thing about this. Like, there are a couple things about this. One of them is that you don't know which that is.
Right.
Right? You're just going based on the description of it that that OpenAI chose it to be in the list that you see, which doesn't, it's not like a Google search or an App Store search on Apple. Like, you're not scrolling down to see the top 50. You're just seeing the top ones that OpenAI is showing you. And sometimes they're just there, like Planty and Math Tutor and like their things.
So here's
And
something
I was just going to say
interesting, though. Go
the
ahead.
other piece of that is that you don't know, like, you can't see what it's trying to teach you. You can't vet it. You can't, like, there's a bunch of information that's not included in your
Yeah.
ability to vet this
Yeah.
thing.
So, for
It's just,
example, if you go to the App Store on your phone, there you can scroll through screenshots and you can get a description of what it does,
reviews.
and it gives you features and functions, and you know what it does. Here, you've got to go off the title and pick that and open it up and do it and see what it does, and you just really can't know just how deeply it can support you. So anyway, yeah,
This is one of the problems they had with when they introduced plugins.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
the thing that
Same
irritated me the most about plugins, definitely the UI was not the most helpful, but it was one sentence worth, not even a tweet, 140 characters worth of description of it, and you knew, and that included the title. So you basically had to do a lot of trial and error. There's a little more text now, which is helpful, and you get two full sentences. But yeah, I agree. I would love to see not necessarily a landing page, but at least maybe there is an about section if you go to the actual GPT, but that's one more layer in you have to go.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Trying to see that description. Like, I have two custom GPTs in the public domain. And if you open it up and open up the interface, it has a 2 to 3 sentence long description of exactly what it does. Many of the other ones that I've tried that are in related areas, they don't have such a description. You just have to start interacting with it. And that could take you hours and hours to try to figure out which one of these is actually useful. You'd have to trial it in order to know just how extensively this has been done, because anybody can make one of these things public. A lot of them are junk.
I mean, that's the same with plugins, right? Now, here's something interesting. Because I looked at this as I was saying it, the universal, I'm just going to share my screen. Look at this, guys, because this is an interesting play. I don't know how this is going to work, but this is an interesting play. Window. Sorry, I want to make sure I'm sharing the right stuff here. Okay, so I was just talking about Universal Primer, which is sitting in the #1 spot for education. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If I go to Universal Primer, it opens it up in a new tab, which I actually do like. You see, learn everything about anything. That doesn't help me at all. We got 4 suggestions here. Teach me React and Redo. Explain how transformers work in LLMs. Okay, whatever. But here you go. By runway.com. And you think to yourself, oh, runway.com. Okay, they're putting out an educational tool. Here's runway.com, the finance platform you don't hate. What does that have to do with learn anything about anything other than, is this just a really clever marketing play by runway.com, who makes this tool that is a finance tool to put something out there that's going to catch lots of eyeballs, learn everything about anything. It's about as simple as you can get. Lots of people go clicking on it because they're curious about it. And here Runway gets free advertising out of it. In other words, does Runway care if they make 5 cents off the back end on this, or is it all about getting them?
I don't think it's actually an elaborate marketing ploy. I think I think it's the person who quickly wrote up all of the filling in all the fields of what everything is and didn't put runwayml.com.
No, because you have to verify your URL through the website. Because I had to do that for Scaled. Like you have to go in and put a DNS on the website
for even the description. Oh,
yeah, really? You do. You have to verify the DNS. I had to do it for my website. Like I verified our AI business. I had to do that. Yeah,
same thing. Well, it didn't take long, but there's an actual button in there that says verify it so that it comes up officially as from Scaled, which I love that they do, because otherwise people could be putting stuff up there that says it's from our company that's not, and saying, oh, it's from Scaled and it's like crap, and that could be damaging. So I do love that they had that extra layer of like authentication. But yeah, I don't know. I think
all the answers to what you were trying to learn just reformatted to be like, oh, well, let me use this example. If you're talking about finance world,
it's a good question.
If you want to learn more, go to runway.com.
I feel like I don't want to give them any more advertisement. But maybe I don't know.
Coming soon from Andy, like everything that you want to know through horsemanship, right? Through knowledge about horses.
Yeah, it's a good analogy for life in general.
There we go. I can teach you anything.
So let's respond to Ken Stewart here, who's saying, hey, there is also, in addition to search navigation on the store, there's also an array of categories, and you can click on those categories and it'll bring those categories up. It offers, 6 or so within that category. There's a leaderboard leaders, and then you can also click more, and you go and you can look at more within that category. So there's another way to figure out, what the sort of the taxonomy of GPTs that have been built are. I would say what I think is that because this is targeted at ChatGPT Plus subscribers, this is largely made up of useful tools for workflow processes, right? So if you're doing programming, there's a whole section on that addresses that. If you're doing marketing, a whole section on that. Research. I don't know if there's a unique category for sales, but it's going to be the main functions that have been used for generative LLM based AIs, and there's a paucity, I would say, of things that are out there for other areas. Specifically, I built a couple that show up in the lifestyle category. Lifestyle is a backwater in this world at the moment. It's mostly purposeful productivity tools out there that are getting the high levels of usage.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So what do we think? Is this like, obviously it gives the ability to have actions on it. So Consensus is one from research. And if you go to Consensus, which is the #1 rated, if we will, I don't know exactly what rated means. It's the #1 listed one under research and analysis. I can't say rated. I'm not quite sure what their
I think I know what that is. There is a metric on each one when you look at the results that shows the number of uses of that particular one. I'm pretty sure it's ranking those based purely on usage.
Okay. Well, then let's say that Consensus. Now, Consensus, basically, if you go and it says it's by consensus, and then if I click on, well, actually, it's not a link. It just says by consensus. But anyway, it creates an action, and then you have to prove that action. Carl and I went through this, beating our heads against the wall when custom GPTs first came out with Zapier actions. But essentially, it calls to their database. Consensus in this case is an AI research assistant. It says search 200 million academic papers from Consensus, get scientific-based answers, and draft content with accurate citations. Now, it failed on me twice. No shock there that the actions just wouldn't do it. It wouldn't go around. So that was annoying. Then it did finally work. It took forever, which we also have talked about, Carl, is the out and back is like going from here to the moon walking. And then it did finally give me back. I said AI in healthcare because I just the first thing I thought of. And when it was done and it did work, it provided 10 cited research papers from 2017 to current day on AI in healthcare, a very thing. Very helpful. If I was doing research or if we're doing research for this show, I see value in that. But it's basically just a porthole to consensus. That's all it's doing. I could go to consensus, I suppose, and do the exact same thing, assuming I knew what their website was.
Yeah, probably. I think that's to me we're probably not seeing the best GPTs right now. Like, I think the true ones that will be useful are the ones that can actually get the function calling or the schemas or the APIs to really hum and work. Like, those are the ones that I think, because with a protected database, because all these, if you really think about it, logo GPT, image generator, the writing ones, if you make half an attempt, like 20 minutes, you'll probably be able to prompt something very similar to what 90% of these can do, right? And then you can create one and it'll be yours. So I just don't think right now we've seen what the best are. And I'm hoping that this doesn't become like plugins where everyone's excited and then it just dies because everyone just figures that part out. You're like, wait a minute, I can do this myself. Do I need logo creator? No, I don't. I can create my own prompt with a logo creator and I'll just stick it. Why do I need to use this one? Another way that it could go is that the laziness factor could get into it. Oh, why would I want to build one when I can just use this one? So I feel like it could go two ways at the moment. And I'm just kind of waiting, where will that go? And like, because I went through every single one of these categories and I was like, there's maybe one or two that I will use on an infrequent basis. But the ones that I built myself, I'll use on a regular basis because they appeal to me specifically. I built it, put the data that I wanted in it. It's super, super tailored. And I think the one thing that we kind of under the radar thing that they announced yesterday too, before I guess we get into Teams, was the those GPTs can now learn and remember based on your conversation, which is really cool, because the more you use it, the better it becomes. And that could go either.
That's the idea.
I don't know if that actually has been deployed yet.
No, we have no clue if that'll work. So but then again, that's the same thing too, is wouldn't I rather create? I feel that's where the big piece missing here is. One of the the most exciting things about a GPT is that you can put your own data into it, or a set of data into it. But because I can't put any of the data into any of these things, there already is data put into it, that kind of halves the usefulness of it. I think
you could
upload a file.
I mean, you can upload, but you can upload to an amount, but if I build my own GPT, I have 10 gigs of ability to upload. How much can I upload to one of these GPTs? I don't know.
Here's what I would say. I think there is a play here, and I'll tell you just candidly, this is what we're doing at scale, right? I'm at a point where I can produce custom GPTs that I feel confident. Let's take a LinkedIn post writer that I feel confident if you said, I could do that. I could just go into and use the tool to help me create it. You're right. You could. I don't think it's going to be as good as mine. That's just I'll put that out there. I believe at this point, my prompting is better than you can recreate with a simple custom GPT. Right. So now when we look at sales with like something like Scaled, we can put out generalized, very helpful cold email writing. I'll just throw one out there, right? As a generalized but very helpful, very specific tool that's really helpful to the end user. And then what it does is we say to the end user, hey, do you love this? And they're like, yeah, I use it all the time. Wouldn't you love it better if it was highly personalized on your company, knew all your company's data, and was able to do this with pinpoint accuracy and personalization? And they go, yeah, because I already kind of like it. And you're like, cool, that's what we do. And then we charge for that. And I'll tell you, that's exactly what we're doing. Like that's the play. That's like, we're already doing that. So like, I do think there's like, for businesses, if I'm just throwing this out there, you can be creating custom GPTs that are very helpful for your target specific end audience.
You're bang on, because that's what I'm doing. And I'm not relying on the GPT store. What I'm doing is I built something. We would provide that as part of our discovery call and whatever it is.
Right.
We provide that. And that would be the gateway for, like, here, it's there. You could use it if you are on Teams, whatever. But if you like, you're right. If it's trained on your data, which we can build, whether it's a GPT or, a RAG or something else, we can do that tailored to your data. That's what we're going to be doing. So like that, it's a gateway, but I think it's hard to rely on the GPT store just by itself.
I agree.
Right.
As of right now, I mean, based on what we know,
the business,
if you were just going to rely on the search bar, that would be tough.
Right. Yeah. The business play for this, if you are a business person who's looking at what the business model is around this is like writing your book, or dare I say, doing your podcast, right? So that it is another way for people who've already met you to have another experience of you, or for people who have, like, they're reading something else and somebody references this, then they get an experience of you, and now they're going to come and find you, right? So it's another way of putting your value in the world, but you have to continue to show people your value in the world. You can't rely on that to bring everything in, right? The book,
lead magnet, right?
The book is the thing they use to vet you, or like, oh, cool, hey, there's a book, but that's not how they find you the majority of the time.
Okay, so I do want to switch, because like we're already at 27. That's okay. The Teams thing is a pretty quick thing, but I do want to address some of these questions. I'm sure they're on here. Gwen said, agreed. What are the little numbers and the bubbles that pop up beside the ChatGPT and search? It's how many times they've been used, right, Andy? That's what we were saying earlier.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's on a monthly, a total, last 7 days.
I think total.
Okay.
It was.
Gwen said, great in theory, but then let's see. Gwen said, great in theory, but then it's like the news, you only start seeing what you agree with, might lose out of the box thing. Yeah, I mean, for sure. Yeah, I assume, Gwen, you're talking about if custom or ChatGPT,
memory, the learning
memory, the long-term memory, exactly.
Yep.
And then she said, but wouldn't it just be connecting to custom GPTs that already built brand GPTs? I'm not sure. I missed that, Gwen. I apologize. I'm not sure what that was referencing to. Do you guys know?
No, but keep talking
to
us later, and we'll come
your
back.
Your business model where you're using them as a lead in. Your brand's GPTs. If you're building one that's custom for a customer as a client, as Carl was describing, then. But I'm not actually. Give us some more there, Gwen. Come on,
Gwen. If what you mean is like, is there like a commingling between them? Every time I do it for a client, it's a brand new one that's only accessible to them and their internal team. So I'm not sure if that was what your question was, but if it was,
maybe this is the answer.
Yes.
You said yes on that one. Okay. Cool. We got it. All right. So let's talk really quick about ChatGPT for Teams. I can pull this up. And as I do, Jumi, do you want to go through this, and I'll just throw it up on the screen?
Sure. So OpenAI released ChatGPT for Teams. It's another pay tier for them. So right now they have Plus, they've added Teams, and they added earlier Enterprise. So Teams is to fill that niche in between. So that's going to be usually more for smaller businesses, or just smaller groups of people who want to collaborate by using the same account. The biggest benefits I see from what they're offering is you get access to the 32K context window, so you can have larger discussions going on with GPT-4. They tout that none of the information that you use will be used for their training data. So there's that data safety factor, privacy factor there. But the big thing is it creates a workspace. So they've created an admin so that you can have multiple users communicating and collaborating using the same GPTs for that workspace. And I think that's the number one value add for this pricing tier. And it's not that much. It's actually just $5 more than the Plus, and you just have to have you have to have a minimum of 2 accounts on it.
So it's $5 more for the year if you pay by the year.
It's by the year, by the annually, yeah.
And
it's
you have
$5 a month more per user.
Yes,
if you buy annually, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, or 10 if you do monthly, basically, because it's 30 if you do monthly.
Which is look, I mean, if you pay annually, you cannot reduce the number of users that you've paid for until that renews. If you pay monthly, like if I add 3 right now and I only need 2, I can change that. But that means I'm paying the $30
more a month per user. Yeah.
So openai.com/ChatGPT/pricing, or just Google that. Will basically take you to the page I have up on the screen now. If you're listening to us, I'm just showing you that now basically they show 4 pricing tiers. We have free, we have plus, those we're familiar with. We also have enterprise, which was already out. And now team. Team sits between plus and enterprise. Just going down the screen really quick, a lot of it is the same. If we just start at the top, everything's basically saying the same for plus and team. But as we start to get down a little bit, one thing we don't totally know all the answers to are advanced data analysis. For plus, it says standard. For team, it says expanded. For enterprise, it says unlimited. There was talk about how much you can use it. Like right now, there's what is it again, Beth? It's 30 every 3 hours.
It's 40. It's 40 every 3 hours in the regular ChatGPT interface. I believe it's 25 every 3 hours within a GPT.
Okay, so they basically are saying that you should get more within the team, but that's not specified, which I think is a problem. And they do have other stuff in here, like for instance, SOC 2 Type 1 compliance, which I already know. I have a client or a potential client that was a sticking point for them. And I think team is actually going to end up opening up them to start using OpenAI at the business. I think there's individuals that were using it already, but this was a pushback from the company that I've talked to several times. And I think there'll be maybe some future discussions because of it. So I'm excited about it. I'll say that I'm excited about team. I think it's much needed. Enterprise was too far out there. Not really what a team like scaled as a team of like 20, 25 of us are full-time. And then we have a bench of 1099s. But if you just look at, we're a fairly small, efficient team. And this is something we're looking at immediately to do. Rachel from the Daily AI Exchange, not the Daily, the AI Exchange, just merging the two of us now. The AI Exchange. She said she immediately did it yesterday. She put out a post about it. So, she's bullish on it as well. I think of the two of them, Teams and the ChatGPT store, the custom GPT store, I'm more excited about Teams. I know that's not what we talked about more today, but I don't know. What do you guys think of the two of them yesterday? What do you think has the biggest long-term impact?
For us, it was Teams, no question. Like our business, 100%. Just because we don't have to, we can't get on enterprise, but now we just put everything under like essentially my account, and then everything moved over, and it just became so much easier rather than trying to share different GPT. Like it just, especially we created several for what we do. So that was more helpful than this because we knew this was coming and this was technically there. You just had to find it. Now you could find it, but like, yeah.
I think long-term, the store will probably have the biggest, widest impact. I have high hopes for what their trajectory is on that. The Teams is nice. I would still like to see an agency option so that you could manage multiple workspaces under your admin or management account, basically an agency hierarchy there. I think with that little tweak, I think it fits in a nice spot between the big heavy enterprise requirements and the individual user.
I also think that like this was a very OpenAI move, right? So the store rolled out and it's like exciting, but like there's some stuff, but then like there's this whole new gift that you didn't even know was happening, and that's happening too, right? Like that seems very OpenAI, and like yay, I'm glad they did it. And for me, the store, just the fact that Nick wrote Grimoire, like I'm good. If that's all that comes out of this, that is like totally worth it for me.
It's pretty awesome. Yeah. I would call it taking a page out of the Steve Jobs book of one more thing. That's kind of what it seems like to me.
Okay.
That's the impression I get.
Sure, I didn't think of that. I think they mentioned this, by the way. They announced the store, if you will, on Dev Day several months ago. Then with all the shakeup, there was sort of a funny post about considering all the things that have happened the last couple of days with Sam being ousted and back and all that. They're like, we need some more time. And they said it's going to be early 2024. It is. It's only the 10th day of 2024. So it was. But they pushed it, but I'm not sure why. There was nothing else added. It doesn't seem. It seems to me like it sat on the shelf from whatever previous version it was to the way it went out. It wasn't like, oh, we need more time to make this even better. It was just like, we need more time because we need more time. So I'm with you guys. I don't necessarily think the user interface is my favorite. I do fear that it's going to have a similar fate to plugins. Not the plugins are gone. They're still totally available and you can do them. They're just sort of pushed off into the left corner, and clearly OpenAI is not giving them a whole lot of love because they're just up there. But yeah, so I think this is interesting. I'm more excited about the teams personally, but we'll see, I guess. Any other final thoughts on either one of these before we wrap it up?
There's one thing too. The when we talk about the App Store, a lot of the things is right now, like if you go to the Apple App Store, you submit your application, your app, and then the right who approves it and so on. Now we have to be assuming Google, maybe Anthropic will be doing the same thing. However, the difference between that and the App Store is that you can't just submit one app and cross it, right? The programming language, you actually have to build it in the ecosystem. So you can't build a GPT. You kind of can build a GPT, maybe similar to the way you'd build it in Bar in Google or in Anthropic. So be very curious to see if said builder wants to build in different places. Is it just a copy and paste, or once they actually have actions really dialed in, how would that look in the space? And because obviously as a developer, you want to be on all platforms. What does that look like? How is that going to be integrated? So over the next 3-6 months, it'll be fascinating to see what that comes up with, what that looks like, and how these apps are. And the only thing that the last thing too for me is like, are we going back in, which we already are, into the walled gardens of whichever platform you are in, that's your preferred platform, and that's the plays you're going to stick there and that's it, right? So over the next couple months, it'll be interesting to see that.
Yeah,
I predict there'll be a GPT for that. Convert my GPT to Google and Anthropic.
Last thing I want to say before we go out is we released our second ever interview today with Nicole Leffer. It is now live. Please go check that out. That's a sort of a bonus thing. We're going to be doing much more interviews this year. They won't take away from our live shows. They're just in addition. It's on all the streaming platforms. So go check that out. Nicole is a super genius when it comes to marketing. has all the experience in the world, and she's a CMO AI advisor, and she's just the best. So if you want to learn about marketing and AI, go check out that episode. I just re-listened to it, and she just has a lot of great nuggets in there. So go listen to it when you have a chance. Okay, that's it. We will see you guys tomorrow, where we will be talking about a different major player, hopefully in 2024, Apple. So we will talk about all things Apple tomorrow. All right, guys. See you then. Bye.
Aloha.